So I want to ask you first that how has the spring started for you? How is it going?
I've been I turned 70 last December, and it was very with a lot of considerations. I was traveling for 23 years for Grand Funk Railroad every weekend, and most of the gigs are far Midwest, East Coast. I live on the West Coast for all those years. I live in Vegas now, but I was in LA, not that different, right? Even though it was weekend gigs, man, it took 3 days out of my week or more, depending if there's 2 gigs or something. And then it takes me a day to like recuperate, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
2 days later, I'm back out there again. Now, I love the guys, and it was great, steady work as a guitarist. I know I just saw Gene recently, and I was sharing a little bit about that. He was surprised I would not want to continue in something because he wants to like keep moving, and I do understand that. But he's doing his legacy, he's Gene Simmons, In Grand Funk, I was playing guitar for their legacy and their history. And I know that the 12 years of Kiss that I was involved in is still very, very current in many of my fans' minds. And that kept me from enjoying all that. The pandemic taught me all about that. The pandemic was amazing in the sense that I didn't have to travel, so I could explore my era and things that the social media became the way to connect with people. You couldn't go places to do it. And I'm continuing to entertain people with showing riffs and things, and they love that, So I just want to do what I want to do. I don't want to travel for somebody else. I want to be my own boss and carry on. And that's why the Finland trip made sense to me, and it's also not a super long one. I know there were other countries not far in Scandinavia. Why don't you come here? Why don't you come here? And well, if I had the right offers, I might have considered it. But I'm really happy with just being over in Finland for a week. That's fine with me. You know what I mean? I know it's a long trip, but I know what it will mean to them, and it means a lot to me too. And there's no reason for me to. Well, I'm going over there, so I got to go take whatever gig. No, I'm at a point in my life. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. That's nice.
I'm actually surprised that so many musicians got back on the road after COVID. So like you said,
right? Yeah, I almost considered, and then I started to think about it. Obviously, when you first went back out, things were just so screwed up.
Yeah,
and then it became upside down where it got so crowded and so over, like kind of like everyone going crazy. Whoa, I gotta go, So like that became hard, because there's too many flights, too little of everything you need at these packed airports and everything. So that was really interesting. But I hung in there thinking, it would be nice if I could make it until I have my big 70th birthday in the middle of December. And then I can give him, I gave them a couple of months notice anyway, so it wasn't like a shock, and of course they immediately got a really great replacement for me, someone that's knows the guys and has performed with Don Brewer, the leader. So it all worked out. I still keep in touch with all of them, so that's great. But I'm just, I know what you meant. After that, I thought, oh, what am I going to, do I want to do this? But again, now I can pick and choose, and I'm not committed to someone else's schedule. That's all.
But you are like cutting it to like less and less and less shows.
Well, it's not about less and less. It's just me. Okay. Now, if you said, well, why don't you tour? I don't know if I could sustain a proper tour necessarily. Because as much as there's Kiss fans everywhere, that all those performances that people love and the gigs that I've done, cruises, well, you got 2,500 Kiss fans on the cruise.
Yeah.
I'm pretty popular, right? These special Creatures Fest events, things like that, and Ace's there, and one of them, even Vinny and Peter were there too. Those events are very sustainable to have a great crowd, a passionate crowd, have a sold out crowd, and get paid well. Okay. But I'm not at the age where I want to go do a club tour. Okay. Let's put it that way. Okay. Now, am I willing to go to Finland and do some clinics and clubs? Absolutely. It's me. It's all about me. Okay. And I don't have the expense for that with an entire band. Now, the Great 80s Festival made sense. And I think I need to tell the story. A lot of people were wondering, well, why'd you wind up in Finland? It really came out of, and I hope he doesn't mind me telling it, Tommy from Lordy, and I are good friends. I worked with Lordy years ago, and I have a special place in my heart with him. He's amazing. I think he's a wonderful person. And what he created with Lordy is so interesting to me too. And of course, he loves Kiss. So, and was like Kiss Army Finland leader for many, many years as well, right? So he was going to do some sort of special birthday event, and then something went down logistically. It all started with his thing. And then, of course, well, if I'm going there for that, which was going to be up in Lapland, what I mean? But it is the right month of the year to do stuff like that. But then I started to look at, well, if I'm up there, I may as well do some other events. And that's when Marco, the current president of Kiss Army Finland, who I've known very well a long time, and I've jammed with his band as well, started talking about, well, let's do these clinics. And by the way, this is one festival. They're very motivated to have you. I know the mayor, and then I turned them on to my representative, of course, my manager for these gigs, and they worked it out. So that's how it all came together. I don't even think I would have had the conversation about the other gigs if Tommy from Lordy wasn't trying to put together this big hoopla, this big party that unfortunately didn't happen. It might happen next year now, and that's fine. So I didn't want to kill everything just because I couldn't do 4. I could do 3, and that's fine. You know what I mean? And I'm very excited to share everything about Kiss. These things are always related to my guitar playing, who I am as a person. So the 2 clinics, one in Helsinki at the On the Rocks, and as well as the Hono Bar, if I'm saying that right, in Tampere, are me performing the backing tracks. Some of them are very specialized. Some of them are very rare, even because they're my working tapes from the Kiss years. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so there's missing vocals. Sometimes there's even a little different things going on, and I do share by letting them hear. And this is the how that song evolved, and check this out.
Oh, that's
things
cool.
like that. Yeah. I don't just do strict like song. No, there's a setup. I love sharing that kind of stuff because, I mean, again, it was entrusted to me, but it's so great in a live environment to say, hey, check this out and listen to this. You know what I mean? And then I'll do a Q&A, obviously, so I'll be able to discuss things with them. And because I know everybody would like to take a photo and meet me, it's got to be done with that meet and greet status, kind of a preference. And we have some special goodies for them included in the meet and greet. And all that's on the Kiss Army Finland site. You know what I mean? How to do that. Okay. So those are those 2 clinics. Okay. And then the third event is that Great 80s Festival, which is, I wasn't looking to tour festivals or anything in Europe, but this one just fell in the right place. There's something about it being called the Great 80s Festival that I think is pretty appropriate because that's my era of Kiss, even though, of course, I moved into 90 and through 95, almost 96. With the Hot in the Shade, Revenge, and Unplugged, and Carnival of Souls, but it makes sense to be a part of that. Apparently, I'm headlining, and I'm very honored with that. And I'll do a set of music, all great sampling. Marco and I went over all the songs. Very much not what you would see at a Kiss concert for the past 20 years. Okay, I can promise you that. But everybody knows that with the cruise performances, that it was for me to own my era, but as well, sometimes I do something that I'm not saying that's happening on this list because I'm not doing 2 sets like on the cruises, you know what I mean? But I decided one day I was over at Kiss World where Gene has, the museums there and the mini golf here in Vegas. And all of a sudden they started playing The Oath while I was like filming Gene's gold records. I have a nice wall of records too. He's got the mother load, right? I mean, he's got it all there, If you're in Vegas, you got to see that. Anyway, the Oath was playing because they're always blasting a whole mixture of every year Kiss music, okay? And I said, like, oh, this song's amazing. I'm thinking I'm listening to it. And I go like, we got to do this. So we opened the show on the cruise, the follow that later that year with that. So that's how I get inspired. The Kiss catalog's amazing. And obviously I'm always really focusing on my years, but look, I just bought the box set for Creatures. All right, I'm not on it, you know what I mean? But Creatures of the Night is a great album, and I didn't want to go for the LPs, and I saw that the CD box set's on sale on Amazon. Boom, just arrived yesterday. I can't wait to dig in. I know my brother had there were a couple of rare things that my brother might have had something to do with. I got to listen. I want to listen to everything you know, and other friends that I know from my history, shall I say. So it's, you know, and there's a meet and greet also in Great 80s Festival. It'll be fun. You know what I mean? I know my Swedish friends were like, are you coming to Sweden? No, come to Helsinki. It's not that hard. You know what I mean? Come here, you know?
It's
So
just one
I don't
ferry
want
or one
anybody to
flight.
think, yeah, it's compared to my flight, you know what I mean, where I'm coming international. So we'll see if they can make it. And I think I'm not planning on another European trip this year because, you know, the magic time's really that late spring, summer, and then it's kind of done because then it gets more severe with the weather unless you're going to rough it out in the clubs. I don't want to do that. Okay, I'll be honest, you know. I mean, there was a festival, the same one that Gene just did in Brazil, that I was approached, and my band guys, you know, the cruise guys who I love, Brent and Todd and Zach, all of them were all over the place. You know, two of them with Slash, and Zach is busy with the different people, and I didn't want to come out with a big Brazilian festival date with 100,000 people, whatever it was supposed to be, that way. You know what I mean? And I do know that a lot of these things are set up way in advance, you know. So that's why I'm not saying I'm not ever coming to Sweden or the Netherlands or to Norway. And I have friends and fans there. I know I keep in touch with quite a few people there, and I know the comments. I recognize the names, but not this year. So please, if you want to come, and I promise it will be worth your trip, because I just know that it's all going to be real interesting stuff that I don't, you know, I did some clinics in the past, but I keep, you know, changing things and mixing things up and better stories, and I'm able to prepare the backing tracks in a different way. I've been bragging to Lisa, my wife, about that because there's times we've performed to backing tracks. So I learned all the tricks, tune it right, just include what you need, because there will always be that song. I'd love to use that song, but, you know, there's something wrong with it. You know, now I know tools, I have apps, and I have GarageBand and all the technology to kind of increase the, you know, which ones I could choose. So that's nice. I like that.
So you have obviously mentioned the word Kiss quite many times already in this interview, and obviously it's a big part of like your life. So how did it actually feel when it all basically ended and they played the last show?
You know, first, I mean, I'd like to start that question though first with how it felt when I started. You got to realize I was first asked to help out and just be a temporary member for 6 weeks, maybe do some of the American tour. It all depended on Mark St. John, the new guitar player, how his health went, you know, because he had this thing with his hand, okay, which swelled up. And ironically, when I played on Animalize and Paul said, don't cut your hair, I'm like, what does that have to do with the, you know, the ghost guitar session I just did? It has nothing to do with it. And then I get the call because they realized that Mark couldn't tour. So that 6 weeks, I thought I won the lottery. You know what I mean? To me, it was just, this is amazing. I'm a rock star now. I could put on my resume, I played with Kiss for 6 weeks. I really thought it was amazing. Okay. So then, of course, as it evolved and Mark did get better, but then gave it a shot, and they weren't too, I had the home team advantage, we call it in the sports. You know what I mean? You know, so they sent him home, and then they said, you're the new guitarist, you know, here's the contract. So now, and I'm thinking, oh, this is even better. There's no doubt, but I'm thinking, it's going to last, you know, 3-4 years. How much steam do they have? They just took off the makeup a few years ago. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it turns into 12 years. Now, by the time it came to that screeching halt, as far as I was concerned, I won the lottery more. I won like 12 lotteries, you know, because it was such a. Now, while you're doing it, you don't think that you're the luckiest guy in the world. You're just trying to stay focused, do the best job you can, and manage all the emotional matters between, you know, Gene and Paul would fight sometimes, or they would compete, and sometimes I would see things, you know, just decisions made that I couldn't understand. But then again, I didn't own the band, and I don't have that past that they had with everything they went through with the original guys and managers and making millions and losing millions. You know what I mean? It was a whole thing for me to be there with. But losing Eric Carr, I mean, we went through our own little dramas of tragedy and highlights with massive successes. You know, all those the European dates were always amazing, gold records, and playing Madison Square Garden for me, being a New Yorker originally, amazing. So by Unplugged, yeah, I knew that those guys were going to be there, and I wasn't so aware that they were negotiating behind the scenes that this could be, well, those promoters are offering big money. Reunion, it's been 10 years. It's kind of like that Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
It came back bigger than ever, you know. So then I understood that. I think Eric Singer was more shocked, even though he was only in the band 5 years. He was like, I don't think Peter's up to it. I don't understand how they could do this, you know. And meanwhile, of course, they did it until the old, you know, issues and things happened. And then all of a sudden, Eric could fit in the cat suit, and that became his gig. You know what I mean? And he did an admirable job. They didn't go to me, which I don't regret, although I missed being in Kiss. But honestly, they wanted someone to be the spaceman. Okay. I had 12 years of being Bruce Kulick, no makeup. I didn't have to play Ace's riffs note for note. I could create my own thing. I would interpret his, I felt, very respectfully. Okay. And he always admires me, and I have all that respect for him. Tommy was going to wear that makeup and those kind of suits and do the gimmicky things, and he did an admirable job, there's no doubt, and played very much like Ace. He has a much harder time, and it doesn't make him a lesser guitarist, but he has a harder time when they delved into some of my, you know, songs that I played the solo, because he's more that kind of a player, what Ace really owns, you know, this more bluesy rock and roll, kind of straight ahead, where I started to do the Eddie Van Halen thing, you know, and some of those techniques. So I wasn't, of course I knew, all right, for me to be in that band that long, I mean, I felt bad. I saw how well they took off, and it was a while for me to adjust, that I knew I'd have to start from the bottom, which is where I started with John Corabi and put together Union, okay, which was a great band. We just did the music we wanted to do, but of course, the Kiss and Motley Crue guy put a band together. You know, bad timing too with everything being so incredibly Seattle, Nirvana, and all that kind of stuff taking over. So ultimately, I wasn't that surprised. So it wasn't a big shock, and I knew that I'd have to, you know, start again from the bottom. And I'm not, you know, flying, you know, first class immediately, and you know, I lose those perks, you know, the 5-star hotel and everybody catering and a personal roadie everywhere. You know what I mean? What can I say? But I survived, because when you have your talent and you want to, you know, create and perform, and I certainly, that wasn't a terrible age for it to happen for me. You know, I could still get out there, and I'm real proud of what I did. After that, I took the Grand Funk gig because it made sense. I do love playing guitar. I love that music. So in 2000, I started with that. I look back now and I think, wow, I mean, that was only 4 years after I left. You know, then Kiss was no more for me. And Union filled that gap. And then there were many times from the 2000s on when I would go to South America, when I would come to Europe, go to Scandinavia. Obviously, it's been quite a while now, because things got busier and busier with Grand Funk, and then the pandemic. And then, of course, busy again with Grand Funk. So now I can maybe take some luxuries of some of the more international travel, okay, when it makes sense.
So were you actually like disappointed that the band didn't ask you to play on those like final shows or even the final one?
Yeah, I mean, I got a sense that it wasn't going to happen for quite a while, okay? Because certainly if there was going to be an invitation, you don't do that the week
No,
of, okay?
no.
Don't. And that doesn't even mean even if I live there in New York, I don't, you know. But and then when I would say to Eric Singer, we always keep in touch, and it'd be like, all right, well, I guess I'll see you when you get back. And say like, yeah, I should be home on, you know what I mean? So he didn't like hint around. Well, they missed a really huge opportunity. And I talked about it quite a bit in January when I finally, I could call it, I came out to tell everyone I'm not in Grand Funk anymore. And you know, And here's my take on what happened on that last Kiss show, because I didn't say nothing for about a month or so. But I really think, and it's not just about me, Eric Carr, mention Ace and Peter and Bill Aucoin, you know, come on. Terrible. They really missed making a better feel good evening for everyone, when it was much closer to every night before. And those who say, well, I saw you up on the screen, they'd been doing that for years, where they'd have little things. So they didn't feel it was important. I feel they missed an opportunity. I know they, you know, really respect everyone I just mentioned. It's not that they don't, but the fact that they didn't understand that that's what you're celebrating, along with, wow, this current band made it through all this, and look at us with the multi-million-dollar show, and now we're going to show you the Avatar. I think that was a big part of them dropping the ball in looking at the past. Okay.
Yeah.
I applaud them in thinking broad and big and future. Okay, fine. I knew that they would never want to find, you know, let's start a TV show, find the best Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons. You know,
No.
I knew they wouldn't do that, because there's something like, for them to be a part of that or judge that, it would be very awkward. But to take them and then make them avatars, it totally made sense to me that they did it. It was an extra ouch for me when all of a sudden I saw some videos the next day of how they did it. You know, I mean, they said, we are immortal. And then all of a sudden, you know, a lot of smoke and you don't see anything. And then the screen opens. But what do you hear first? My guitar playing God Gave Rock and Roll to You. My big appearance. You know what I mean?
That's a little weird.
Yeah, but God Gave Rock and Roll was their choice, was the right song. And I'm sure that was chosen to, probably in collaboration with the people who are helping them make it, you know. So it wasn't like, oh, let's do it, shout it out loud. You know, I mean, they figured God Gave Rock, and especially that's a song that they don't generally do much. They've done it on occasions. So there you go. I'm a part of it. All the guitar parts are there, and I was like, whoa, this is really weird, you know. So what can I say? Missed opportunity. I think they presented the future in a very probably unique and unusual, clever way.
Yeah,
because that clearly is the future. But they kind of ignored the past, you know, and that was, I think, a missed opportunity. That's all.
But what's your take on avatars, like overall? Do you see them like succeeding in this, or how do you see it? Like, for example, I have very like mixed feelings about how it will end out.
Right. I think it's too soon to know, because I do know that they need to develop it. And then I think time might be kind to them, that if you do it 3 years, now they're talking about like almost 3 years from now or something like that, right? Who knows what the climate, maybe there's other things like that could be out there that makes it similar. And then don't forget the younger generation. Like, I have fans that are teenagers and barely teenagers, and they think they know everything. And for them to experience a new version of Kiss, even if it's presented more like Marvel superhero, or I don't know how it's going to really look in the end. Maybe, I mean, I know Ace has come out and said things like, that's not rock and roll, you know, whatever. And I get that sentiment, but I wouldn't count out anything, because I think the company that's investing and Gene and Paul are too smart to just go down some, like, you know, $1 billion road of a disaster with this. You know what I mean? So let's see what happens. You know, I don't think someone that likes it and supports it and goes means that they got to forget about the Asylum album and music, right?
Yeah.
Why not? Or Creatures of the Night, or Revenge, or Destroy, or whatever it is. So it's all, I mean, there's no band like this. It's unbelievable. You know, and you think about all the accomplishments and the controversies. It's really incredible.
If they would have approached you about the avatar thing, would you been like into it? If they would have created an avatar
first
of you as well?
Yeah, without being a makeup guy, I'd be really like scratch the head and wondering what they're talking about. But if they were trying to do, you know, Asylum era, Revenge era, you know, Kiss, and looked at an avatar, I'd be absolutely open to hear the discussion. But to me, it was clearly going to be, and that was a little bit of a disconnect. If you're going to be the makeup guys, it's Eric and Tommy. They look more real than Gene and Paul within those avatars. You know, you would think it would be more, either a little less obvious, or it'd be more Ace and more Peter. But you know, again, we're on a subject that I think there's so many unknown factors in what goes into how to do this and what they should or could do. And then there's all the drama about like the makeup and I'm easy. You know what I mean? A non-makeup version of the band would be very easy, okay, for Avatar. Because, you know, I don't have to worry about, no one else wore my face. So I don't know what's going to happen though.
But it's like you said, nobody couldn't like predict AI 2 years ago. If people would have said that in 2 years there would be like AI and you could ask robot thing and they would reply to you, and so like you said, nobody knows how the avatars will look like 3 years from now.
And technology and everything's moving even faster in a way.
Yeah.
So it's look, it was a Swedish company, you know, and they do very well with the whole ABBA thing. And let's see what can happen. One thing about the Swedish company, I know the Swedes very much, and again, I don't know any of those people involved who are involved with the new ownership of KISS when all that starts to really be implemented. But Swedes love my era too, you know, but maybe they're just buying the makeup and that's all who knows? Okay. No idea. But I know I have a lot of support from the Swedish KISS army and Scandinavia, all of Europe. Brazil goes crazy, South America, you know, it's such a incredible international, you know, passion for KISS that I know it exists even for me. And I'm just one part of that history.
So before we wrap things up, I want to ask you a bit about the future. So how does it look like at the moment? How do you see it yourself?
Well, obviously now that I've had more time, it's kind of really interesting that I feel like almost a year has gone since I've been with Grand Funk, when it's really like, what, 4 months, you know what I mean? And it's not that long. And yet I like that every month I've had a big project or an event, a performance or something where I was involved with. And I'm good with that. But even that takes up a lot of my time. And I do have goals for new music, because I've had songs written that I haven't had the chance to record. So I have to start, like, instead of always focusing on some of the travel type events that are coming, on what I can do here. I'm also, you know, I have a huge guitar collection that I've been kind of slowly winding down with, because it gets a little ridiculous, that I did want to explore trying to offer things in previous years, but I didn't have the time to, you know, do it right, photograph it, you know, make it right, you know. So I'm kind of looking at getting involved like that, you know what I mean? Because it's the right thing to do. I don't need them all, and I know some fans would be very excited to have them. Now, there's a book that I'd love to write finally. I know there was times when I used to write a very intricate blog on my website, the older website. And there's lots of stories that I know I haven't forgotten just because of time. There had been a lot of interviews done that I'm trying to, that I would want to incorporate. I have to work that out. And I'm excited that I think a book in my tone and about me from my experience would be well received, you know. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm writing the Motley Crue, The Dirt, okay, book, you know, and then I'm going to get a 6-figure, 7-figure publishing deal. Even if I'm self-publishing it, whatever it turns into, I do want to tell my story in my own voice. I don't want to be just sit and be interviewed by a guy, you know, and then they turn it into a book. And I don't fault the musicians I know who created a book like that, but I enjoy writing. I really do. I know it's hard, but I like it. I like telling from my voice. Okay, so that's another big project for the future. Now I can tell already with the record and the book, you know, I don't know if anything could even be a record. A song or two could come out maybe this year, but certainly not a book. And a full album couldn't come out this year, I don't believe, you know. So it's a slow process. I want to there's a couple of albums I did in the past that I'd like to turn into LPs that haven't been vinyl. Transformer. I released Audio Dog, very limited, with a friend of mine last October. You know, there was only 600 copies. It sold out that day. That's great, right? So that can always be offered again. But Transformer is the other one. BK3's been out there a few different ways, but there's a way to offer that with some more bonus stuff, because I do have other material I didn't finish. So there's always that, besides the new music, the book. I'd like to do some more things with my wife, too. She sings great, and she's got that range that she can sing 80s Kiss music, you know, which usually women can, right? A lot of the guys can't. John Bon Jovi interview I just heard. Oh, boy, he's still wondering. He's still waiting to see if he can sing, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's a pleasure. I love her voice, and I love working with her. So we did already a private event that was very well received, and I hope to do more things with her too. So there's so much to accomplish, both in a sense of representing what I've done in my life, who I am, where I'm headed, what I think, you know, how I feel. There's all the social media posts. There's teaching guitar. There's and just between these events that come up, I'm not less busy. I get weird when someone says, "So now that you're retired, you're relaxing a lot." No, I'm not relaxing.
No,
I feel a little more right.
It doesn't look like that.
No, and in fact, it's a little more like the pandemic, because I don't have to travel as often. And that was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe how busy my wife and I were. And we really reinvented a lot of wonderful things about what my career is. And then the more I shared that with my fans, the more they shared back their affection and enjoyment of it. So it's a two-way street. And just recently I started to share, like, this is how I play this, you know what I mean? And it's going really well on social media, you know, and again, that's free. Just turn on your app and it's there. You know, again, I didn't give a lesson that everybody would snore, you know, through that, you know, and this is where you put your finger, you know what I mean? But I enjoy that connection with the fans. So I'm always, that keeps me so busy too. Just having creative posts. I love cooking at home. My wife is a great cook, and we have a pancake site, you know, Kulick's pancakes, you know what I mean? And now at Gene's event, it was funny. He asked Lisa to make some pancakes and bring it down to the studio event that he just did here in Vegas. So, and then we realized, maybe we should bring some cookies for everybody. And certainly, you know, they were catering a lunch and they didn't really have the sweets together yet. So Lisa baked 100 cookies for everybody, you know, and then we gave out the aprons, you know, and the fans love it. You know what I mean? So there's something on every little part of my life, or shall I say my passions, I'm able to, in a big way, share it with the fans too. And they love that. Okay. I think that's fun, you know, to kind of let them see how I enjoy all my music and my home life and things that every food people love. Some of those posts are better than showing a guitar. You know what I mean? I don't always understand it, but I'm just saying, I show Lisa's sloppy joes, you know, nothing fancy. And it's like, oh my God, cornbread one time I got a huge reaction from. So it's all good. And I just have so much to keep me busy. I have to prioritize. That's the word I learned, prioritize. But I chill with my wife. We have favorite TV shows. We love to take a walk in the neighborhood. Some of my dearest friends are coming over tomorrow for brunch. This way we can connect instead of on the phone or FaceTime. So, and there's always, Vegas is fantastic for entertainment. And I've already started to meet a lot of these entertainers, you know, from Chris Angel to a magician like Colin Cloud as well, a mentalist, you know, Murray the magician, you know. And then there's obviously the big headliners, Donnie Osmond and all that, you know. And then we could see, Foreigner came to town. Okay, let's go see Foreigner, or, you know, to go see a band. Let me go see my buddy Vinny play with Vinny and Phil Suzanne in Last in Line, the Dio thing, you know what I mean? And we go, you know. This town just never stops, you know. It's just always something going on. Or I get invited to you know, Golden Knights game, you know what I mean? And it's great. There's always people throwing parties and events and mixers. It's an exciting place to live. I didn't retire to a little town, up in upstate New York or something where, these kind of things don't happen.
I must ask you, since you mentioned that you have new music and a book in the works, that is the music like for a solo album, or how do you plan on releasing it? And for the book, how far is actually that at the moment?
Well, the book, I can explain more when I know a little more, because I got to go back and look at where everything's been at. Because I started like doing some things in 2000. So, but I didn't take that time yet to really study it. And once I know for sure, that's when I could be a little clearer as to, but still the book's going to be in my tone, my memories, my experience, not only the Kiss years, it's got to be, how did I become a musician?
Story.
How did I grow up? I had my brother, rest in peace, very popular musician, very successful musician. There's a story there. There's a story about my parents and my personal struggles. I do plan on sharing some things about how I became successful and some of the trials and tribulations of what that is. The music, when I thought about doing, like, let's say I just had the guys that play with me on the cruise, it's really hard to like promise a band album, because I can't say you're in my band and here's your retainer or here's your salary. I don't have a structure for that. So I want it to be a solo record, but I want to include them where I think it best suits. And then if I realize I really want to get this done, and I know this other great singer, if I can't sing it, and if it isn't Todd or Zach or someone like that, I'll find the right person for it. I'm not like in a hurry to make it wrong, but I don't want to promise everybody a band album. I think it's best for me to it's a Bruce Kulick album, but it will be collaborative with other talented people in my life. And certainly they're part of my A team. I mean, we always joke about that, but sometimes you got to go to another person, and sometimes you never know who you'll find as well. But we are a great, not only formidable together, but we really love each other as people too. And that's really, nice for me. I really like that. But I'm not going to demand, you can't go on that. We have this, you can't do that. I can't do that.
Thanks a lot for taking the time to do this with me, and all the best for the future. Anything you want to say to the fans as a closure?
Well, I know not everybody looks at websites, but I always make sure all the content's up there, because everyone's on a different social media platform. So brucekulick.com is really a fun place to see all things me, and it talks about the Finland thing, and it talks about all these other events I hinted at. And then you can see what I did before. And obviously there's cool merchandise there. And I do ship to most of the international countries. Some of them have some issues with Brexit. I don't think
don't mention the country.
Yeah, I know. Don't mention the country. But the other cool thing, that will take you everywhere, even those cooking sites, which is really cool. And I got a funny story about the website I should share, because our Norwegian guy, they heard me in an interview and say, well, I don't have brucekulick.com because somebody took that domain, because I used to be kulick.net. In fact, if you put in kulick.net, it will redirect you there. I always made sure of that, to my new website. And I remember this guy, he bought it. He was an IT guy. Now, obviously, whoever owned it didn't sell it to a Norwegian guy for what Bruce Kulick would require. You know what I mean? Because then they would say, oh, well, we want, and mention a big price. So when he gifted it to me, I know the woman that was helping me with the site was like, are you sure? I don't believe it. You know what I mean? I said, no, don't underestimate a Kiss fan. And sure enough, he did gift it to me. And then I remember within a year, I was in Norway doing a gig, and he was a guest of mine. It was really great to meet him and his wife. So I have to be grateful to my Scandinavian fans and how cool that was. So brucekulick.com, everything's there, but I look at all the social media. It's pretty easy to find me there. And again, for any details, especially in the Finnish language, go to kissarmyfinland.com, and that's the best place that you'll know exactly. I made a little cheat sheet of like the name of the clubs, and you know what I mean, and what's going on. But I know that when you see it online, it's the easiest way to do it. Okay.